Okay, we'll look at another example just to get our heads around it before I ask you to write. Okay? All right, so this one, let's have a look at it. Yeah? Firstly, are there any questions about structure or anything like that? No? Goods? I think the questions will come up a little bit later once you actually have to write it, but awesome. Let's look at this one. What do we see, Shinova?
He's just like being pressed into the book, like it's...
Yeah, exactly, right? He's like suppressed. That's what most year 12s feel like, to be honest. Like trapped within a book and yeah, just stuck there, right? Okay, so there, the question says, examine the paradox within the image above. There is a paradox here, yeah? Can anyone identify it?
Okay, this might be a stretch. I'm just guessing. But with the books and everything, I guess that represents like education and the freedom of education. But in the image, he's being forced to instead.
Exactly, right? Education represents like freedom of thought and like opening your eyes. Yeah, like books are meant to open your eyes, and yet look at this kid. His eyes are like scrunched tight together. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's the paradox. It's that, learning is meant to be something that's enlightening. It's meant to be something that is freeing and liberating. Yeah, when we look at like Paki girls, who are fighting for education rights, it's liberating. It's literally their accession to freedom. Yeah. And yet when we look at education, we're kind of like, hey, but I'm stuck doing maths homework at like 11 p.m. I just want to go to sleep. So here they're showing that while yes, it's meant to be liberating, that's exactly what it's meant to be. We also see it becoming something that's enforced and enslaving upon certain students, right? Not all students find learning liberating. A lot of them find it to be a struggle, something they actually have to like overcome. Yeah. And look, he is suppressed, right? He's being compressed against the books, like we mentioned. And it's not even in a way where he can appreciate the book, right? He's not reading it. His face is way too close to actually like know what it's saying. So he's not, I guess, appreciating or he's not learning, right? So that's, I guess, the paradox of schooling or education, how, I guess, yes, it's meant to be something that's completely like freeing, and yet the methods to learning are not as freeing, right? You're stuck doing homework, you're stuck doing assignments at certain times. Yeah, so there's this inherent paradox in it. Now, I want you guys to each find one technique in this text that you can identify. One technique. It might be a little bit challenging, but one technique. I'll give you like a minute. Each of you find one thing or a few things and write them down, and then we'll talk about it. Note colors, note symbols, note physiological stance or posture, facial features, note. Yeah, I think those would be it. But yeah, I'll give you a second to write it down. Okay, I think it's been a minute. Okay, we'll start with here. Here, what's one technique that you notice in this?
His body language. And his like face, he looks like he's struggling and like he's frustrated.
Awesome. So what do we notice about his body language?
He's not trying to like do anything about it.
Okay, so I guess seeing his facial features, it's almost like resistance doesn't work. Yeah, he can't resist against it because there's literally something pressing him down. But it's also just like a very dehumanized or I guess, yeah, dehumanized or demeaned posture, right? Very suppressed, right? It's not liberating, right? When you have your shoulders open, when you're like facing forward, you have power, right? He doesn't have that. He's crouching downwards. Awesome. Facial features. What specifically do we notice about facial features?
You can kind of see him scrunching his eyes.
Closed eyes. And what does that kind of represent to us?
He doesn't want to be there.
Yeah. What do eyes specifically represent?
I guess, you know, the whole saying, like, your eyes are the window to your soul. I guess, yeah.
Right? His eyes are closed, so he is not seeing the world, or he's not engaging with anything, right? Exactly that. Yeah. So eyes are this way or this medium for us to access the world around us, right? When you're blind, you struggle more to understand the world around you. So him closing his eyes is metaphoric or symbolic of him not understanding the world around him, not being able to view it or appreciate the things around him, right? And it's all because of that. I forgot what this is called, but we'll just call it the metal thing for now. I forgot what it was called, but it had a specific word. Anyway, okay, Shanova, what techniques did you notice?
Maybe like the contrast in color, or like the shade. So like the books are like bright and yellow in contrast to like the middle of the picture where it's like dull and like white, grays, darker colors. And just the boy himself is like in a darker shade.
Perfect. Yeah, huge extreme juxtaposition between the bright, enlightening book and the, I guess, the more suppressive, dark side of like suppression that's being represented here. Yeah, so perfect. Very, very good. Especially like, look at how nice that lighting looks. And yet this book is like all gray and ugly. And it's like not as appealing as this nice green one. But yeah, perfect. Yeah, this juxtaposition between color. Nice. Okay. Tashvia, is there anything else you notice?
No, not really. But I guess the whole painting is like kind of personal and like intimate with the audience. It's like it's not like a really far away shot or anything, but it's like close.
Perfect, right? It's representing this one person very closely. And I think also because since we don't see his features or his face, right? He's anonymous to us. It's a figure of anonymity that we can apply to any generic student, right? So it's a generic boy, figure of, yeah, so he's representing like the universal student who's struggling through education. Awesome. I think the other thing that I'll mention is just symbols. Yeah, books literally symbolize enlightenment. So those might seem like small typical techniques, but they go a long way. Okay, so books symbolize enlightenment juxtaposed to the, oh, what it was called, the metal thing, symbolizing, I guess, suppression.
Is it called a clamp or something?
I think we'll call it a clamp for now, but it was called something with a G.
Oh.
It's called something with a G, like a grundle or something like that. But yeah, we'll just call it a clamp because that also works. Yeah, let's call it a clamp. We see it in woodwork. I don't know. But yeah, okay, awesome. Now, what I want you guys to do is I want you to write the first sentence of this. Okay, so the first sentence here, when we're looking at it, it says paradox. Yeah. There is no human experience being told to us here. We need to define the human experience ourselves. Yeah. Now, whenever it says paradox or anomaly or inconsistency, you need to, in your first line, you need to identify exactly what that paradox is. Okay. And the reason I say specifically, you need to have it written, this is the paradox, right? The reason I say that is because a lot of students won't identify what the paradox is here. I know it seems obvious to us, but a lot of students won't. That's in common module, many students will not even know what the paradox is at all. Yeah. So we really need to make sure that we identify it very clearly so that the marker can go like, yes, at least they've identified the paradox. Yes, at least they know the concept in the picture. Yeah. So the first thing we want to do is very clearly outline exactly what the paradox is.